Hi guys, this is Nimsh and welcome to another video. Today I have 5 player behaviors or shortcuts that players use to actually unfortunately break the rules. Even though they don't want to, they just remember things incorrectly. So we'll go through them one by one and I will give you some examples so you can avoid making those mistakes yourself and potentially just not being caught off guard if your opponent doesn't know exactly how the play works and he does it to you. So instead of nodding and saying like, yep, I guess that's my life, you can say, wait, that is not how it should work. So let's go through them and I hope you enjoy the video. So the first one I have ready for you is defense reactions. So we are very often skipping to the defense reaction step when somebody attacks us. So what happens, like, we see an attack coming into us and we have a defense reaction in Arsenal. So we kind of want to react immediately with an unmovable, maybe sink below. And this is wrong. This is shortcutting that will actually give us less information and more information to our opponent. So what happens here is we should actually, if we don't want to block, like obviously if we block, right? But we shouldn't just block and then immediately go to defense reactions. We should say if we block or not, and then ask, do you have any attack reactions? And if our opponent has attack reactions, then we can react with defense reactions. So there's a couple of things here. So first, if they attack, we block and we ask, do you have an attack reaction? If they say no, I pass, we can also pass, which means this attack will now proceed to the next step, which will be hitting, right? So they lost their option to play that attack reaction, or maybe they would if we have a defense reaction. Again, potentially if they would want to play an attack reaction, they don't know if we have a one or not. So if we block and then we say, I defend with this as well, then they can think if they want to play their attack reaction or not. They maybe wanted to play it, which would get covered by our defense reaction, but now they have full information, so they will just keep it for the next attack, right? So this is a very simple shortcut that happens all the time, but remember, don't be too hasty with your defense reactions, just keep them, ask your opponent, is there an attack reaction or not, and then react with a defense reaction. The second one I want to talk about is a card. It's Autoraf. So Autoraf, the shortcut here, what usually happens is people say, oh, it gives go again. Autoraf gives go again. And it happens all the time with the new Prism players. They feel like, oh yeah, it gives go again, right? Like not only like it adds like damage to my stuff, it also gives it go again, which is not true. It does give go again to attack cards. But what happens usually is like if someone has Autoraf, they attack with it, and then they keep attacking with their auras because, yeah, it gives go again, right? So as a player who's playing against Prism, if you don't realize that, you will just get a ton of damage. And that shouldn't be the case because there was no go again. On the other hand, it does give go again to attack cards, which means that if somebody plays a blue to attack with Herald, whatever Herald, that Herald will have go again even though there is no yellow in the pit zone. So remember that. Don't make decisions based on just, yeah, there is a blue, so there is no go again. I can block it with my full hand because they can actually follow up with like maybe Herald of Erudition and then find damage, like draw cards and stuff. So you need to know it doesn't just give go again. It gives go again to attacks. And also a couple of things about Prism that is also something I see a lot when the newer players are playing Prism. Whenever Prism takes damage, and the damage actually goes through, all the shields should get destroyed because they prevent damage. There never should be a case where a Prism player took damage and some shields are left. That is just illegal play. So remember to always take the shields from the board if the damage actually went through. And another one, obviously, watch the pitch. A lot of Prism players who are especially new to the game, they feel like, oh, my Heralds have go again because they have go again like 90% of the time. So people are like shortcutting and playing those Heralds. So watch the pitch. Prism not always has go again. So they need to have a yellow in the pit zone. So basically watch for that. So watch the pitch, Spectral Shields, and Autoraf. Third one is pretty straightforward. It's another card. It's Art of War, a shortcut that people do. And it's not like a shortcut play. It's like the shortcut in your mind that allows you to remember what a card does, right? So Art of War is a very nice instant, has a couple of options. And one of them is what people remember, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Or well, actually, it's like, that's what they remember. The real thing is you need to banish an attack action card, which doesn't happen often. I mean, it happens actually sometimes that people completely shortcut it in his mind and they either discard a card, which is not even an attack action card, or if they banish, they remember correctly, they banish a non-attack action or defense reaction, whatever, right? So whenever somebody uses Art of War to draw cards, always double check if they banished an attack action card. It's very important because people just completely forget it's a thing. They evaluate their hands and they want to banish something else, and it just doesn't work that way. So Art of War, very simple, easy mistake that people do, and then they do that mistake, and opponent is like, oh yeah, the card is gone, so the card was off, it's fine, they can draw cards, and it just suddenly is illegal play, which is obviously it's not. So watch out for that. Another one which is pretty funny is Pummel, and Pummel is a great card. Everybody remembers Pummel buffs. Pummel buffs a thing, and if it hits, I discard a card. That's what people remember. And it just happens so many times when people make an illegal play because they assumed that's what Pummel does, and it doesn't. So the first thing that happens is that Pummel only works if a card is 2+ cost. If it's like an action card, that like an attack action card that attacks you, right? So that's the first one. And I often see like people, for example, in Prism, when Prism attacks you with Fortune Herald, which is 1 cost, they look at the Fortune and they think like, does Prism has Pummel? And what can I like? Should I overblock? Like, what happens there? And maybe they do have Pummel, but you cannot play Pummel on Fortune because it's just 1 cost, right? So that's one. The other is like people sometimes see those like smaller attacks. I see people forget that Pummel does not, for example, that works with like hammers. So Reiner is attacking with a claw, and people are thinking about Pummel because they think like, oh yeah, Reiner plays Pummels, right? No, well, he does, but you cannot really play Pummel on a claw because it's on a card there. So that's one important thing, that you cannot play it on certain cards. And I've seen Pummel illegally played, and obviously like raise my hand like, hey, this is not a legal target. Remember what your card does. And then the other one is the on-hit effect to discard a card. I've seen many times when a player, a Starvo, played it on a hammer. Again, new players kind of, but like people sometimes forget, or it's like just a reflex. Like, oh yeah, I got hit with Pummel, I need to discard a card. So like Starvo goes with a hammer, Pummel, hit, frostbite, and someone discards a card, right? Like, no, it's not. It doesn't work that way. Like if you get hit by a weapon, buffed by Pummel, you don't discard a card. So you need to remember that it's a really good card, but it's not as good, right? Similar with Razor Reflex, because I feel like we'll see a bit more play of Razor Reflex in Briar now. So remember, Razor Reflex will not work on Command and Conquer. It works only on cards that are 0 or 1 cost. So you cannot play it on the bigger cards, same as Runic Reclamation. So Runic Reclamation, again, costs too much for Razor Reflex to work on it. So you need to just watch out for those things, because opponents might just, in their mind, shortcut the thing, just do the thing, and they will feel it's a great play. And they're like, why is nobody doing this? Well, you know why. Just tell them, hey, it's not a legal play. And obviously in a competitive, like higher competitive setting, you have to call the judge. In like armories and stuff, like, fun. Definitely just explain to the player like, hey, you can't do this. But in a more competitive setting, you have to call the judge because maybe the player is actually at the Pro Tour. Yeah, they might not know, but it's a freaking Pro Tour. Like, people should know this. And if they do it against you, maybe they will do it against someone else. So definitely raise your hand. Don't be afraid to call a judge. Just, hey, judge, they did that. And like maybe nothing happens. The judge like easily reverts the game state to what it was, which means the Pummel or whatever goes back to player's hand. But at least the judge knows, right? So if next match same thing happens, well, judge will know that this is intentional. This is not like a one-time thing. And the last point for you today is breaking the chain. And this is one that sometimes it makes me rage, but I also do it a bit. And what I mean is that people, like all of us, we do shortcut closing the chain, and we don't close the chain. It's like we keep stuff on board. And what I mean is you attack with something, right? Your opponent blocks with his equipment. And then we do a thing that literally just closes the chain. So we do not play an attack. We maybe use a Heart and Cross Wrap with Goliath Gauntlet, and we want to attack again with something else. And we do it, and our opponent is in a bind because they want to block, but their equipment is still stuck on that first attack, even though it shouldn't, right? So I think it happens a lot, and it's again not intentional. A lot of players do it because they just shortcut the thing, like they just play their hand, right? And they forget to close the chain. And sometimes closing the chain is also not super great because maybe you play the plunder run, then you attacked with something, then you stopped, and plunder run goes to the graveyard, but there is still on-hit effect like flying around, so it's now more difficult for your opponent to remember that it's there. When I was playing Viscerai, I was keeping stuff on board to kind of like have that reminder that there is a Mordred tie, there is some other things. But I always try to tell my opponent like, hey, I've just broken this chain. You can't get your equipment back, so you can block my stuff. So be mindful about this. If you are deciding to not break the chain and you signal it, right? Like if you're breaking the chain, just signal, I've just broken the chain. Let's take the equipment here and here back. Maybe those two cards, if we agree, they can stay on board to signal on-hit effects or whatever. But let's have it like in a clear and concise way. But what I do see a lot is people just completely do not realize they've broken the chain, and then games are won because someone didn't realize their equipment got freed or something else happened that shouldn't happen, right? So just I like take care of yourselves and of your chain. Close it when it's closed. Have a good banter with your opponent, like what is the best way, and just be mindful of your own equipment and watch if your opponent has broken the chain. And whenever you do it, just remind your opponent so like there is a fair and clean game rather than I lost because I didn't have enough equipment to block, but then well actually I should have enough equipment to block because there was something happening. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you good luck with all the tournaments you're playing in the upcoming weeks. And that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.